35628. Who's that?
Is it me?
I don't know. Annette, no, it says on one of the ones it says 735628. Is that Cheryl?
Yes.
Okay. Hi there. Hi. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
Good, good. All right, we're just going to wait for some more people to log on. And while it's recording, I just want to say welcome to everyone. And if you do get cut off for whatever reason, or you have to go halfway through or whatever, please watch this this lecture, because it's quite an important lecture, and I'm hoping it's going to be quite an eye-opener as well, this lecture. So let's just wait another second or so.
They're all eye-openers.
They're all eye-openers. Good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. All right. He's still coming. Ronnie and Abby. There you go. Okay. A few people are going to do the recording because load shedding, or some people have gremlins in the computers tonight. So that's okay. That's not a problem. But as I said, please try and not miss out on that. As usual, I will send notes tomorrow sometime, and yeah, and it will be obviously available. The recording will be available on YouTube, and I see there's a lot of other people who are watching it, because I'm getting a lot of views, much more than the people that are participating. So in a way, I guess it's good. So let's hope it's just going to be good for them. Right, so we're going to go into part 3, and I named part 3 "Don't Bend Your Knee," and I hope that you're going to see what it's about when as we go along. So last 2 weeks we spoke about these 2 things, the apocalyptic literature has, as well as the source material that John is going to be pulling from, specifically Daniel, Ezekiel, and Zechariah, and other Old Testament books, as well as the extra books and the culture around him and the time of the writing. And you know, we spoke about Enoch, and one of the students sent me quite interesting stuff about Enoch and asking me questions. You know, should we have available the Enoch, and why was it out of the canon, and so on. Obviously, this is for another lecture, but look, the non-canonical books are good to have to read, but they're basically there to just help with filling in more about the picture, okay, and about the time and the culture and all that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't say we must treat them as gospel. Maybe there was wisdom in the fathers of our faith who decided that they're not a part of the canon. And you know, I guess if your faith is not strong enough, they might reading them might confuse you, might bore you, might sway you away from the faith. So you know, it's good as extra reading, but I wouldn't take those extra books as the gospel, or as, you know, the 66 books that we are used to. So tonight's lecture, we're going to look at a more social and economic situation of the people that he's writing to. Now, in Revelation 2 and 3, we'll find the letters to the 7 churches. And as we said before, those chapters are not separate to the rest of the book. Remember, we spoke about that many people believe that the first 2 chapters the first 3 chapters of Revelation is almost like a separate book to the rest of Revelation. And it's not. Everything in the book is about these 7 churches. And it's written to them and the audience that attend those churches or in the area of those churches, and everything that comes after chapter 2 and 3 is going to reinforce what Jesus says to the 7 churches. So I'm not going to talk about the 7 churches. I'm only going to mention a few things, but I'm not going to go deep into that. Perhaps that's a good 7-week teaching kind of thing. But so we're just going to really skim. And the 7 churches, and if in case you don't know, are Ephesus, and Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea, or Laodicea. Some people call it Laodicea. Now, what happens in chapter 2 and 3, Jesus approaches the elders of every church, and he's going to give a commendation. This is what I have for you, and this is going to give some critiques. This is what I have against you. There's going to be some promises and some warning. And basically, if you keep on remaining faithful, you will receive a crown of life. Or if you keep remaining unfaithful, I will snuff your lampstand. Okay, the lampstand represents the churches. What's important to know is that these 7 churches are not randomly selected. This is not, okay, I'll choose this church, but I won't choose that church. I will choose this particular denomination, but I won't choose that denomination. No, it's nothing. It's nothing like that. Okay, these are the churches that John the Apostle was pastoring in the province of Asia Minor. Okay, so they're not randomly chosen. John literally pastored to them, so he knew some of the people. So if you look at a map there, here's a map of the Roman area. Okay, I mean, it's a massive area, so this is only just a little bit. I was focusing a little bit more about the 7 churches of Revelation, but you can imagine this is a massive part of the Roman Empire. The area in the map is the Roman province Asia, okay, or Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey. And in this province are the 7 churches. Now, to the west of this is what's known as the Greco-Roman world. To the east of it, you're going to have India and China. And what you see is in this area, there's a merge in this area, because you can imagine the trade, the merging of culture, merchandise, economy, politics, worldviews, religion. This is where Africa also comes in, because at the bottom of this map, okay, this is where Africa comes in. And this whole melting pot is in that area. Obviously, Israel is to the right of this map. And obviously, if you want to go from that area to Egypt, or if you want to go from that area to Mesopotamia, up in the east, then you have to go through Israel. And if you remember one of the modules that we did, those who've been with me since the first modules, we spoke about the importance of Armageddon. And that place was a crossroad of the 2 highways. The one highway, which is the Via Mara, the way of the sea, and the other highway is the King's Highway, which is the way of the kings that takes you into the east part. So this is the area that we're talking about within Revelation. Okay. One of the reasons the Roman Empire was so successful was because when they conquered lands, they didn't destroy the religious system. Often we think that they destroyed the religious system. No, they didn't. They assimilated them and pulled it into their own. So you can still have your God as long as you bend your knee to our Caesar. Okay? And the Romans were known for the Pax Romana, the peace of Rome. And that basically is what was the formula to keep that peace alive, was that if you bend your knee to Caesar, and you can still worship your God, but you have to bend your knee to Caesar. And if you don't, then you're going against the Pax Romana, and then there's going to be a problem and so on. And you can imagine what was happening in Israel at the time of Jesus is that this is exactly it. They were going against that peace of Rome. Okay, so what I want to do is look a little bit more at what was happening in this area. Now, the picture that you guys are seeing, okay, can you guys see that picture all right?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so this is what is known as the Agora. The Agora in Ephesus, okay? And to us, this looks like a pile of stones, but it's more than that. And I hope you can see how impressive this would have been back in the days, okay? I mean, this is excavation. To me, I look at this excavation and I'm still like going, wow, this is absolutely amazing. But can you imagine all these colonnades that you are seeing basically on the right and at the top there, all these colonnades, can you imagine a roof on top and in the middle an open area, okay? Now, the Agora to these people would have been like a mall, like a shopping center, okay? It was a place that you will go for trade, okay? So are you taking in that picture? Because I'm going to move on. Taking
Got
it.
it?
Okay, got it. But so much more will happen there. Like official business meeting will happen there. And in the middle of the Agora would have been a temple to Julius Caesar and to the Roman god Roma, which is where they get the name Rome from. Now, most scholars will agree that in order to enter this area, you will have to pay a tribute to the temple, and outside there will be an altar that you will go, and then after you make an offering, you can go and trade in. Okay, and we will speak in more detail about it in lectures to come. But I want you to get this thing is, the question is, and a question that most scholars, when they look at the revelation in the context of revelation, the question is, well, how would you know who made a tribute on and who didn't? And some scholars think that there would be a mark that you will have had to had. Okay, so you would get a mark that will tell the officials at the gate that you made a payment, a tribute to the temple, and so now you are able to go and trade, either buy something or sell something. I want you to keep that in mind. There's a mark that will be put somewhere, okay? Now let's talk a little bit about the Caesar of the time, the Caesars of the time, plural. One of the images in the book of Revelation is actually from the book of Daniel. And it's about the four beasts, and the beasts are symbols of different world powers which will represent different kingdoms. Now, at the time of writing this, the Jews are wrestling with who is this fourth beast. Because remember I said to you, why was there all these extra books that were not canonized? Because they were wrestling with certain questions that came out of the book of Daniel, Ezekiel, Zechariah, and all those other books. And they were trying to figure out and trying to interpret certain things, okay? So with this vision of the beast in Daniel, they are wrestling with who is this fourth beast. They've had the three beasts that were occupying them, but who is this fourth beast? And for the most part, they all agree that the fourth beast is Rome. Now, they will recall seeing a dragon or a serpent, and they will talk about it of any government that is oppressing God's people, it's a beast. Okay? So in a Jewish apocalyptic literature, in a Jewish mind, when they see the name beast or the reference to a beast, they're not thinking this is a real beast, okay? This is necessarily the beast of the evil or anything like that, but it's basically a word used in apocalyptic literature to describe any government that is oppressing God's people. Are you with me?
Yes, thank you.
Are there any questions?
Not
Uh,
yet.
Not
No.
at the moment. Okay, all right. Not at the moment. Okay.
I have.
Yes.
No, never
okay.
mind. No. It's completely not. Yeah, I'll wait. I'll ask it later. Thanks.
All right, Cheryl, no problem. So let's look at the Caesars and see how it clashes with all of this. Julius Caesar is a well-known Caesar to most of us. If we've done history, I'm not quite sure about history nowadays, because what they're learning nowadays is certainly not what I learned in history. But anyway, Julius Caesar was 49 to 44 BC. Augustus, 27 BC to AD 14. Is now the adoptive son of Julius Caesar, not the natural son, the adoptive son of Julius Caesar, and his name actually was Octavian. Then we have a number of other guys, and then we end up with this guy called Domitian, and Domitian reigned 81 to 96 AD. And by the way, there were 12 Caesars, okay? 12 Caesars, 12 months. So now when Julius Caesar is assassinated, Augustus, if you see, sees a comet in the sky, okay? And so when he gets into power, he has an idea, he's sitting and he has a scroll in his left hand, like in this picture. Often you will see a statue of him, of Augustus, holding a scroll in his hand. I want you to have all these images, all these pictures that I'm sending your way today. I want you to hold them in your mind. Okay, I want you to have like a slideshow in your mind. So he's holding this scroll in his hand, in his left hand, and the scroll can be a sign of the word, the proclamation, the decree, what they say, who they have life over, and who they deem death over. In other words, it's a symbol of power. So he has this idea about using the comet in the sky that he saw on the day of the assassination. He wants to use it as a sign. So what he says is that he saw the Son of God ascending into heaven, and he has 12 witnesses. So he's going to claim that Julius Caesar is divine. In fact, he gets the Senate to officially declare Julius to be God. And now Augustus has to get this message out. And one of the ways he's going to do this is he's going to use a coin. And you can see the picture of the coin, okay? And within the coin, it says, Divivi Vivus. And Divivi Vivus in Latin means son of God, okay? Can you see that? So there's a picture of Caesar's Augustus and Divivis Vivus, and you can see the comet there, okay? So he's using it to bring about the message, to spread this message. Augustus is not just going to claim to be the human leader of the empire, but God himself. So when Octavian changes his name to Augustus, Octavian is Augustus, he will leverage the fact that he is the son of Caesar. And if he's the son of Caesar, and Caesar is divine, Caesar is God, that makes him what? The
Son of God.
Son of God. Okay, let's carry on. Now, what happens at this time is that there is this emperor worship that started to spread. Now, in the area of the province of Asia, what I've showed you the map with the 7 churches, what we find is that the cult of the worship of the emperor started to take off very quickly, almost go viral, like what we will say today. In one of the cities, the city of Myra, this inscription was actually found, and it says, the god Augustus Caesar, son of a god, ruler of land and sea, benefactor and savior of the whole world. Okay, so this is actually an inscription that they found in one of the cities. A problem develops with the fact that all these Caesars die eventually, and the Christians at the time were like, you guys are dead, and ours is not. Your gods die and ours is not. In fact, you tried to kill him, but he rose from the dead. Okay, so the main thrust of the movement of Jesus at that time was, hey, all your gods are dead. Okay, ours is not. And every time there was a new Caesar, there was this proclamation that was sent out. And this was good news that they had to hear. Augustus tries to change the calendar in order to focus on his birthday. And what we find is this inscription in the city of Perne. Okay? And the inscription says that. Sorry, is someone asking a question?
No.
No, okay. So I can carry on. And the inscription basically says it seemed good to the Greeks of Asia, in the opinions of the high priest Apollonius of the Monopolius Azantius, and this is the inscription that I found, since province which has ordered all things and is deeply interested in our life, has set in most perfect order by giving us Augustus, whom she filled with virtue that he might benefit humankind, sending him as a savior both for us and for our descendants, that he might end war and arrange all things. And since Caesar, through his appearance, has exceeded the hopes of all former gospels, surpassing not only the benefactors that came before him, but also leaving no hope that anyone in the future will surpass him. And since for the world, the birthday of God was the beginning of his good messages. And in the word they used there was gospel. Okay? So can you see the language of this inscription that almost, if you had to read it, you will say to yourself, yo, this sounds almost Christian, doesn't it? Okay. Now, look at a picture on your left-hand side, okay? Augustus will actually set up 12-day Advent to celebrate his birthday. Now, what is Advent? Advent is counting towards an event, towards a coming of something event, okay? So he sets up 12-day Advent to celebrate his birth. As we go through the different Caesars, the different times we eventually come to Domitian, which is 81 to 96 AD. And the guy on your screen, that's Domitian, okay? And he was quite a character of note. He also holds a scroll. And Domitian, if you remember, demanded his wife to call him my Lord and my God. Okay, so that's what he asked his wife to call him, my Lord and my God. But before you guys get any ideas, okay, his wife later helps to assassinate him, okay? So the guys that are listening, that's not a good idea to ask your wife to call you my Lord and my God, because you might end up being assassinated. Okay, but he often started his letters with your Lord and your God commands you. So that was in the scrolls that he would, in his decree, he would say your Lord and your God commands you. He would have a group of people, 24 elders. They will wear white robes with gold crowns, and they will go before him and behind him, singing, "You are our Lord, our God. He deserves glory and honor, power." Okay. Yeah, I can see some. I can't see anyone nodding, but I can hear people going, mm-hmm. So I'm guessing that is pennies dropping in your head at the moment. Okay. So he also used coins, and I don't know if you can see well on this coin. His son is seated on the earth. Okay. So there's a picture of him. Okay. And it says Caesar Domitian. And then the other side of the coin, he's basically got his son sitting on the world, on the earth, and he's holding 7 stars, which represents the 7 planets that they were aware of. Okay. The inscription says the divine son of the Caesar Domitian. Now, this is a kind of image you will expect of a Greek god Zeus, especially if you did any Greek mythology or Jupiter or any of those gods. Okay, that's kind of image that you would have in your mind if you did that kind of history when you were at school. But often you will see Domitian hold a thunderbolt. Okay, Zeus was the god of thunder, but often you will see Domitian, and in future lectures we will see that he holds a thunderbolt. He also began to claim upon himself the Greek god title, because remember I said to you, Asia Minor was the hub of both the Roman and the Greek world. Okay. Now, oftentimes in the Roman world, you will have these things, like in this picture that I've shown you, called the neochoruses, okay? And which were special areas to God. And what will happen is that a city will request permission to build a special temple. So now Domitian had this idea that he will make Ephesus to be his neochorus. In other words, he's going to build a temple in Ephesus, okay? So here is a picture of the temple of Domitian. Okay, these are obviously ruins of the temple of Domitian. Doesn't look like much now. They literally actually tore it down after he died. That's how much they hated him, because there's not much left excavation-wise of Domitian. He was not welcomed by many of the Romans and of the people in the world. So they tore it down after he died. But excavations suggest that there were between 24 and 48 pillars. They were about 3 stories high, and each of the pillar had guards. So if you look very closely, let me just get my pen out. If you look very closely here, okay, and here, you will see that there's something carved in there. Okay, can you see the carving in here?
Yeah.
Okay, that's basically, sorry, let me
Base.
that is basically gods. Okay, so the statues of different gods. Okay, that were engraved on this. Okay, let me just someone is sending me a chat.
That's at Ephesus.
Hold on a sec. There is someone saying mic is not muted, and we hear a lot of disturbance. So if your mic is not muted, can you please mute your mic? Okay. Right. Someone said, "Is this Ephesus?"
Yeah, that was me.
Yes, Cheryl. What did you want to ask?
Is that at Ephesus? That is at Ephesus.
Yes, that is at Ephesus. Yeah. Okay.
Where,
Have you been there?
yes.
Okay.
I just don't remember seeing that.
Okay. All right. So you would know. So you will actually know, and maybe if you do have pictures of those places, you can quite easily put it onto our group, because I know when Bridget, when we were doing a lot of stuff in Israel, Bridget after the lecture will send a lot of pictures. So if you do have pictures, please share it with us, because I myself would have loved to have gone there maybe one day. But absolutely. So this is in Ephesus, and he puts this temple, and there are 24 pillars, 24 and 48 pillars. There were 3-story high, and each of the pillar had gods in it. Okay, and oops, let me just rub this thing out. Okay. Now Domitian builds. Hold on. Domitian builds this next to the Agora, okay? Not only that, but he builds it so big and so tall that it will overshadow the Agora. Remember, we looked at the Agora earlier on, okay? They're like a shopping center, a trading post, and so on. And then on top of the pillars held by gods, he builds his temple. So you get the picture that the gods are actually supporting his own temple. And in front of the temple, there was this altar of offering, okay? And we're going to get cut off soon in about 7 minutes or so. But with all of that information and what the city of Ephesus was about, we have to understand the powerful message that Revelation was all about. Revelation isn't just future prophecy or a book that is debated for many years. It is a message out of a defiant hope against an oppressive empire. It is calling for a submissive rebellion against a world power that is oppressing people who are professing to be gods. Okay? So I really want to start with reading Revelation in the next session because I don't want to be interrupted. So are there any questions, any observations so far?
No.
Nothing?
Hi.
Yeah?
It's absolutely amazing to see if you read through the beginning of the first chapter, the first chapter of Revelation. It's absolutely amazing to see how many of the symbolism is coming through in this.
Yeah. And you've seen nothing yet. Okay.
That's exciting.
Yeah. That's only the beginning. And that's how I was saying, you know, that and try not to look at, let me actually not tease you, so I don't want you to look at the next slide. But when we go into the next session, what I want you to see is all these information that I've just given you in the last 3 lectures, and especially in this session so far. And that's what I was saying with this particular lectures, is that I want to look at the book of Revelation from the context in which it was written. It was inspired by the Holy Spirit, but the Holy Spirit always uses the current situation to bring about the message. Okay, even in a prophecy, when someone stands and gives a prophecy, the Holy Spirit is going to use elements and imageries that the audience who are listening to this prophecy are going to associate with. Okay, and you need to remember that the Jews at this time, the Romans and the Greeks, would have had all these imageries. Okay, like we started off, if a person had to go into the Agora to do buying or selling, they would have to give homage to Caesar. And as I said, we will talk about the mark of the beast, because that's exactly what it was. They had to get a mark. And why the beast? Because the beast was the oppressing government. They had to get that mark. Once they got that mark, they were able to freely, even as non-citizens, they were able to freely, sell and buy and so on. And as I said, in one of the lectures, we'll talk about the whole implication of, what do you do? Do you go to the mall to buy your stuff? Do you go to the Agora to buy your things, or don't you go? So yeah. Anyone else?
Listening in amazement.
Sorry, Lechai, I'm not quite sure at the bottom there. You say it is a calling for submissive rebellion against a world that is oppressing people who are professing to be gods.
Yes.
Just explain.
Okay, so basically, what I'm saying is that the book is been debated for a long time. It's not just about futuristic prophecy, but it's also a message out of a defiant hope against an oppressive empire. So a defiant hope is really hope against all hopes. Okay, so it's not being defiant against hope, but it's being defiant against the oppressing empire, in this regard, the Roman Empire, and it's hope that it's calling for a submissive rebellion. In other words, not let's make it more relevant. Not burning schools and burning government buildings, but toy-toying peacefully. Okay, there's a difference between a demonstration, a peaceful demonstration. Okay, you make it even more relevant, like what happened at Wits University today. There, you can have a submissive rebellion. In other words, you can have a passive protest, okay, or you can have this what happened, that a person actually died, okay? And in a way, the book of Revelation, when a person from that time would have picked the book of Revelation, we said, okay, well, I don't have to take this. I don't have to take this from this world power that is oppressing me and my people, and they're professing to be God. But at the same time, I'm not asked to pick up arms and go into war with them. I'm asked to have this defiant hope, and especially for the merging religion of the Jesus followers, which will become known as Christianity. Definitely, Jesus there says, love your neighbor as yourself. Okay, so how do I love this oppressing power? And this guy, as you could see, Domitian had no problem with thinking of himself as God. I mean, he puts it on coins. He builds buildings of gods holding the roof, holding the temple where he's basically gets paid homage to. So how do I have this defiant hope that Jesus gives me against this oppressing people who think of themselves as gods? Do you understand?
Okay, yeah, it's much clearer now. Thank you.
All right, guys, we're going to get kicked out just now. So I'm actually going to stop this session before they kick us out, and then just go on to the next session. Okay, I'll see you on the next session.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Wait for, I think there's 2 more that need to log on. Carol, while we're waiting, are you sure it was clearer what I said at the end of the session 1?
Yes, I wasn't following the last bit where it said people who are professing to be gods.
Okay.
But you've made that clear, yes.
Okay.
And also about being, like, how do you love in a situation where it's not easy to love, where you're feeling oppressed? Yeah. It's much clearer. Yes, thank you very much.
All right. Okay, I think there's one more person, because I saw there were 10 of us watching it, but let's carry on. So there's only 7 more slides, but I want to take it slow because I really want it to sink in. Right, okay, so what we're going to do now, so with all this in mind, let's read Revelation chapter 4. And it starts as follows. After this, I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice which I had heard speaking to me like a trumpet. So this is loud. This is a loud thing. This is not done in secrecy. This is not behind closed door. This is, the voice is like a trumpet. And if you ever stood next to someone in a trumpet, and the trumpet in those days was not just like a trumpet like we get now in the symphonic orchestra, but this was a shofar, okay? And a shofar, you can hear the blowing in the shofar. This is loud. This is not done in secrecy. And he said, come up here, and I will show you what must take place after this. At once I was in the spirit, and behold, a throne stood in the heavens, with one seated on the throne. The picture of someone sitting on the throne. And he who sat there had the appearance of jasper and cornelian. And then around the throne was a rainbow that had the appearance of an emerald. Around the throne were how many? 24 thrones. And seated on the thrones were how many? 24 elders, clothed in white garment with white golden crowns on the heads. Can you see what I wrote there in black? Interesting. Okay. Where have we heard this before? In session 1. Okay. If you haven't heard it before, you've heard it in session 1. The 24 elders, the 48 elders, well, basically kings, gods who are holding this temple. From the throne came flashes of lightning. Remember what I said, Domitian was often associated with holding lightning bolts, and rumbling and peals of thunder. And before the throne, sorry, let me admit one more person. And before the throne were burning 7 torches of fire, which are the 7 Spirit of God. And before the throne, there was as if a sea of glass like crystal. Let's carry on. And around the throne, on each side of the throne, are 4 living creatures full of eyes in front and behind. Now, that's very weird, okay? I mean, I remember my mom used to say that she has eyes at the back of her head. I now know where she got the idea from, okay? That this is what John is seeing. He's seeing eyes in the front and behind. Now, John is going to find 4 creatures that were seen before. These creatures show up in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 1, and he is going to describe them very similarly, but there are some differences, okay? In Ezekiel, the 4 creatures, sorry, someone's got the microphone on. Can you please switch it off? Thank you. In Ezekiel, the 4 creatures that do the same thing, they're all identical, but have 4 different faces. They are like the cherubim that surround God's throne. These are the royal beasts that don't just protect and guard the divine, but also proclaim his glory. And in Revelation, they have 6 wings. And in Ezekiel, they have 4 wings. And we see another beast in Isaiah that has 6 wings. And these are called the seraphim. And they're going to say the exact thing that is said in Revelation chapter 4. Now, many scholars think that John is going to merge the 2. Okay? So let's go on. The first living creature like a lion. The second living creature is like an ox. The third living creature with the face of a man. And the 4th living creature like an eagle in flight. Now, people debate about what these beasts represent. And to be honest, no one really is sure. What I find interesting is that in John's order of these creatures, the last creature is an eagle in flight. The symbol of the Roman government was an eagle, but not just an eagle, but an eagle with its wings spread. And I wonder, and this is just me, okay? I'm just putting my thought out there. I wonder maybe John is saying, even Rome will worship our Creator, okay? And the 4 living creatures, each of them with 6 wings, are full of eyes all around and within, and day and night they never cease to say, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. And again, this is not a quiet worship service of just people whispering in the pews. This is a thundering thing. This is shaking the heavens, okay? And whenever the living creature give glory and honor and thank to him, who is seated on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him. Where have we heard of 24 elders going before someone? Okay? So the 24 elders before him, who is seated on the throne, and worship him who lives forever. They cast their crowns before the throne, saying, worthy are you, our Lord and our God, to receive glory and honor and power. Where have we heard these words? Earlier on tonight, if you haven't heard them before. Okay? For you created all things, and by your will they exist and were created. In other words, even Domitian, do you see where John starts his message? He doesn't start with the reassuring message, don't worry, all things will work out for those who love God. He says, hey, I know what you're facing. I know you have children. I know you have to feed them. I know you need to buy coal to keep your house warm. You have a job and other things. And if you have to keep that, you want food, you want your coal, you want to support your family. In other words, you have to bend your knee. In other words, you have to go to the Agora. And before you go to the Agora, you will stop at this huge building, especially if you're in Ephesus, that is a building for the worship of the Domitian. And if you want to buy the coal to warm your house, and if you want to buy the food to feed your family, you will have to bend your knee and get the mark on your hand or on your forehead, wherever they decided to put that mark. Sort of like, if you remember in the times, not maybe none of you guys, but if you remember in the times of going to nightclubs and so on, you will get a stamp. And what did that stamp mean? That stamp meant that you paid the entrance and you can come in and out of the club at any time. You don't have to pay it over and over and over. Well, if you ever went to a club, like I said, I don't think any of you who are listening have ever been there, but I know I have. That means I had the mark of the beast on my hand on a couple of occasions, okay? Because I went there. So it's a similar thing to that. So John is saying, if you need to go to buy the coal and to buy the food, the only way you can do it is you have to bend your knee. But don't you forget to actually sit on the throne. And let me tell you, I've been there, and it's not Domitian. And this is something that he's going to drum over and over and over in Revelation. I've been there, and Domitian is not the one sitting on the throne. Don't you forget who you are. You align to where your lines lies. You can not buy into the gospel, this message of Domitian, this message of Augustus or Domitian or Rome. You have a higher king who sits above the Roman Empire. Don't bend your knee, because there is something more important than just this in life. Can you see what I'm saying here? Are you understanding what John is as he starts? I mean, this is just four chapters into this remarkable book. And this is what he's saying. He's saying, I've been there, and it's not Domitian. It's Jesus, the Son of God, who sits on the throne. John starts by saying there is something more important than this right here, right now. And I think that if we had a conversation with our brothers and sisters from that time, I really believe that they will give us some implications for us. And before we are going to the implications and we finish the lecture with that, guys, say something.
Incredible.
Lachai, you are speaking into situations that you can't have a clue about. I'm telling you, you don't know what's going on, but it's amazing.
So relevant.
So relevant. Sure.
I'm glad. What about the other guys? Silence is golden.
Sorry, just just having trouble figuring out my laptop. Yes, no, it's all good. I need to kind of go over it all again.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Cheryl, it is mind blowing, and you know when you read it and when you understand it in this way, it is, and that's why I will put these PDF notes like I did on the other times tomorrow sometime, and then you can go through it. You can go through the recording, listen to it again. But I'm doing this. I'm shocking you guys into reality because we're going deeper and deeper and deeper, and as we go deeper and deeper, you will see that it is so important for us to see it in the context in which it was written. And I can't stop emphasizing that, not just for this lecture, but I've come to know in the last 22 years, 23 years in the ministry, I've come to realize more and more and more that if we need to understand the Bible, the scriptures, then we need to understand the context in which the scriptures were written, you know, and what the first century hearers in this regard would have heard, and how important it is to know that. So yeah, let's go into the implications, if you will allow me.
Lachai,
Yes.
so before you go, I'm just going to go off topic. When you send them out, last week you sent lecture 1 and 2 together. That's too big for some people's laptops.
Okay.
Then they can't receive it.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the laptops have a limit of how much you can send. So send them. Don't send this on top of the last 2 weeks. Send it
No.
please.
What I did there, Carol, is basically some people missed the first lecture and I didn't have the notes for whatever reason. That's why I sent it 1 and 2. But what I'm going to do is literally after every lecture, I will send the notes of that lecture. If for whatever reason you deleted it or something like that, privately message me and I will privately send you the notes for that, because I keep it. I keep it on my computer. Okay, so you'll get the notes for this lecture, tonight's lecture.
Yeah.
The recording for tonight's lecture. No problem. Okay, so the first implication, and this is very few. I mean, there's so many more implications, and like the two of you said, you know, I'm speaking into more situation than I even know. But one of the implications is God is up to something so much bigger than what any of us could ever perceive or understand. And I think it is so relevant to us today, where we are in the world, in our country, whichever country you're from, in our towns, with our governments, whichever government you fall under. It is so relevant that God is much bigger than the coronavirus. God is much bigger than whatever level you find yourself or stage of lockdown you find yourself around the world. God is much bigger than that, much bigger than what we can perceive or understand. And I don't know what questions you have that has remained unanswered for years, maybe. I don't know what you've been struggling with for years, but I think the message that they will tell you, and these are the people who will hear Revelation for the first time, the first century hearers, audience, I think the message that they will tell you is keep on going. God knows, and He is in control. He sits on the throne. So that's one of the implications that I believe they will tell us. Another one is Revelation invites us to redirect our life's perspective from the immediate present to a much grander story. Okay, we tend to, and I've been so guilty of it so many times in my own life, we tend to look at the immediate present time. And God is not boxed into the immediate. And Revelation, in a way, tells us that He is not. There's a much grander story. Okay. And one of the things that I keep on telling people, eventually the coronavirus is going to be a story. It's going to be a story in our story, either a story of survival, either a sad story, or a story of triumph. But it's going to be a story. Okay. And that's the other implication they're going to tell us. And the third one is they might say to us, hold on, don't bend your knee. Refuse to compromise. as much as you need to feed, and that's the only way you're going to be able to feed. And as I said, we'll talk more about the mark and the beast and all of that. Refuse to compromise. Press on. If you stand firm on a particular situation and you don't agree with the status quo, you don't agree with what's going on around you, hold on. Don't bend your knee to that. Don't allow things to press you down. Don't be under the circumstances, be over the circumstances, okay? So that is something that I think that it will also be an implication. And then the last one, and as I said, there's more than that. These are just 4 that I've chosen. We triumph when we humbly and persistently suffer together for the sake of our cities, our towns, our countries, okay? We triumph when we humble and persistently suffer together. And if anything, maybe this time in history, in our history, maybe God is calling the church to humble and persist in the suffering of the world, of our town and our cities. And definitely the people in the time of Revelation would have understood the suffering, would have understood what it is to persist in the suffering of the circumstances. So yeah, guys, this is basically it. You know, I keep them shorter than the previous lectures and so on, because there are so much information in it, and I don't want you to get a headache after you spend time with me. So any questions before we say goodnight?
Reverend Chai,
Yes.
I have a bit of a question or statement. Wasn't it that with, if I'm not mistaken, was it Augustus that wanted 12 elders surrounding him the entire time?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And then when we read Revelations 4, wasn't it that the amount of elders quadrupled when there was elders surrounding God?
And not in Revelation chapter 4. Later on, there were not. In Revelation chapter 4, there were 12 and 24, which is the amount of what Augustus would have normally have had going before him and behind him. But later on in Revelation, there are larger numbers than that.
Okay.
Are
Thank you.
you with me, or
Yes, I'm with you.
are you sure? I don't
Yes,
want you
I
guys
am.
to disagree with me, okay? I don't have the
No, I was just trying to
from the
get
way
the
I
correlation
see it,
because I
the way
remember.
I've read it, there is it's 24 and 48, and as I shared with you guys, history tells us that that's what normally Augustus would have had in front of him. That would have been the amount of the pillars as well, of the guards and so on, that will hold him up. We'll come back often to this imagery as well, and you will see you are right. Later on in Revelation, the numbers does grow, but at the moment in Revelation 4, it's 24 and 48.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Got my first round.
Yeah, I just have a question from the first lecture.
Yes.
You said that you think it's John from the Gospels who wrote Revelation, but that this Revelation was written between 81 and 96 AD.
Yes.
So how old was John then?
I
If
was
he
quite
writing-
old. Yeah, I can't remember. I did when I think I did mention it, but he was quite old. Also, Cheryl, the other thing is that often they would have had a scribe attached to them, and that scribe wouldn't take upon himself his name. He would still write it as if John is writing. Okay, and often what happened is the author would have died. But because that was the scribe, and there were a whole lot of documents, you know, we think that, and we have the picture of one of the apostles or John talking, and then the scribe writing, and this is how it's transmitted. It's talking, the Holy Spirit, John, the scribe. but there was so much other work, okay? And if you ever written something, whether it was a thesis or articles or something, that you will know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not often that you just sit and you type and that's it. There's so much more around it, okay? All those things around it would have had a stamp as if John himself was writing at that time, okay? So when we look at authorship, it's in one of the lectures, previous modules that I did last year, is that we need to be very careful when is it definitely this person or that person, especially when we deal with biblical authorship, okay? And that's why if you go into do a study on the authorship of Revelation, you will get so many different views. And I chose to believe in that particular view. Okay.
Okay. All right. So that was was it normal to live to like 100 at that point in time?
Oh yes, yeah. And you must also realize that their 100 is not the same as our 100. You know, I mean, the other day I went to visit a lady in our congregation. She just turned 91, proper
Right.
91. Okay, she's in a good
Right.
condition, 91. But in those days, 100, as much as it sounds old, it wasn't our 100. Okay, it was, let's put it between late 60s to middle 70s type of thing, equivalent
Wow.
to our understanding of ages. Okay,
Sure. Okay.
great.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
All right, great. Guys, anyone else? No. All right. So I'm going to say good night. Yes, yeah. Who's this?
Thank you.
Tia,
Tia, yes.
I read that what do you call it? Apocryph,
Elliptic.
the revelation of Enoch.
Yes.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Okay.
And
Okay.
many of the symbolisms that we spoke about tonight in heaven is also written in his book.
Yeah. Yeah. Enoch was big into symbolism as well. And, but the problem is that I can't, even in my lectures, I can't really use Enoch as a reference because I try to keep it in context of the Bible, okay? So I'm working out of a framework of the 66 books. But definitely Enoch, and there were more than Enoch, okay? Because the conversation, as I said, the conversation was very much trying to figure out some of the imageries, and one of the big conversation was about that fourth beast, and what did that beast represent? Who did he represent? Was there another beast coming? Was the fourth beast the beast of Rome, or was it another one coming, and so on? You know, and that's where it opens that debate into the modern day debate of the end times and world domination and what do you call it, one world order and all that kind of stuff. That's where all this conversation comes from, is with this conversation of, was the Roman Empire the last one to suppress, okay, and oppress the children of Israel? And of course, as Christians, we are adopted into that, or is it just any power that goes directly against Christianity? And we'll talk about it in future lectures as well. All right.
Thank you, Lachai.
All right, then, and I'm going to say good night. And you're welcome. And I will send all the other the recording and everything tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. When you say recording,
yes, it's
you mean
it's a recording of tonight, because let's say you wouldn't be able to log on, Cheryl, then you'll be able to watch the recording. So it's basically the recording of tonight, okay? The session tonight.
You mean, so that's different from the PowerPoints?
No, it's exactly the same. It's recorded what we've just we're doing, okay? Because yeah.
Sorry, is it audio?
No, it's exactly what you see.
It's just the PowerPoints.
So it's exactly it. You'll see the PowerPoint, you will see yourself and me on the screen as well. you will see the other people.
Oh.
So it's literally recording
Oh,
the whole
right.
session. Okay.
Okay, didn't know that.
Yeah. So
Okay.
basically, you know, because there's about 30 students, but not all of them are able to. They want to do these lectures, but are not able to log on a Wednesday. So then,
Right.
what happens is they watch it during the week, and then
Yeah.
they will send me if they've got a question. They will send it either on the group or on
Fair enough.
you know, or privately.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
All right then.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good
Okay.
night. Bye.
Night.
Right.